Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. Thank you for checking the video out today. We have more PlayStation news, rumors, and leaks to go over and cover. So before we get into these topics, do me a big favor. If you do end up enjoying this video or finding it informative, be sure to leave it a like. It really does help it out more than you know. And if you are new here to the channel, please consider hitting that subscribe button as well. The first set of topics we're discussing talks once again about God of War Ragnarok. We have some new story details specifically to go over and discuss. Don't worry, nothing we're talking about here is in spoiler territory. This is an official update from the PlayStation website, as well as a little bit of a tease from one of the voice actors as to what we can expect with one character specifically. So this is reading from PlayStation Universe, where it says Sony has updated the official PlayStation website listing for God of War Ragnarok, spilling a bunch of new story details on the highly anticipated sequel in the process. While major details are being kept under wraps, it does offer a sufficient explanation of the general plot, so we have a better idea of what to expect from Kratos and Atreus' latest journey. This is what the updated write-up says. From Santa Monica Studio comes the sequel to the critically acclaimed God of War 2018. Fimbulwinter is well underway. Kratos and Atreus must journey to each of the 9 realms in search of answers, as Asgardian forces prepare for a prophesized battle that will end the world. Along the way, they will explore stunning, mythical landscapes and face fearsome enemies in the form of Norse gods and monsters. The threat of Ragnarok grows ever closer. Kratos and Atreus must choose between their own safety and the safety of the realms. So as I said, this new description isn't spoiling anything or giving anything away, but I did want to update you guys because it seems that as we are getting closer to the launch of God of War Ragnarok, we're going to slowly start to hear more and more about the story and about what we can expect. I do think it is pretty interesting at the end of this description when they say Kratos and Atreus must choose between their own safety and the safety of the realms. It definitely sounds like there are going to be some significant decisions that are made by both Kratos and Atreus that could have some pretty huge implications on both characters. So yeah, wanted to let you guys know about this, but continuing to talk about God of War, reading from Gaming Bolt, it says that God of War Ragnarok's Tyr has a different journey to what's famous in Norse lore. This is what the actor is revealing. So it says here, God of War Ragnarok will see Kratos and Atreus crossing paths with a number of new characters, and while given the series' reputation, most of them, like Odin and Thor, will be locking horns with them, there will be a few friendly faces as well. The game's trailer last year strongly suggested that Norse God of War Tyr will be one of them, and in a recent interview with YouTuber John Ford, the actor who plays Tyr, Ben Pendergast, spoke a little about the character and the way he's portrayed in the game. Pendergast discussed the famous tidbit of Norse mythology of how Tyr loses his hand to the giant wolf Fenrir, who interestingly is the son of Loki, aka Atreus, before then saying that while there are parts of Norse lore that are used in the game, there are also various places where the game deviates and charts its own path. There's a lot of Norse lore that does fit into the game, but then, Santa Monica Studio departs from that whenever they want, Pendergast said, still keeping to the story they're building. So Tyr has a different journey to what's sort of famous in lore. It was a lot of fun though, and a lot of fun to find him. Talking about Tyr himself, Pendergast also sheds some light on what headspace he's in when Kratos and Atreus first find him. So before I read this quote, I do want to issue a small spoiler warning. I personally do not think that this is a spoiler. I think it's pretty much inferred with the last trailer we received and when we saw Tyr. But again, just in case you're somebody who really doesn't want to hear a single thing about anything regarding God of War Ragnarok, then you might want to click off this video or skip to the next section. But this is exactly what he had to say. Not to give too much away, but where we find Tyr when we first find Tyr, he's been through some stuff, he said. So what does that do to a god who's been through a lot and is literally just trying to find his feet? It's a broke situation that we find him in. And so that is the full quote. And I do think it's interesting because this is the most we've heard about Tyr. And I feel like when we find him, locked up, they show it in the trailer, you can't imagine he's in like the best shape and, in the best headspace. But yeah, this is pretty much confirmation from the actor who plays him that he's not going to be in a good way when we first run into him and when we discover him. So it'll be interesting to see how that comes into play and what that dynamic is like. You know, we don't know if that means he's just going to be maybe completely miserable and just has no motivation, or if he's going to be maybe aggressive towards Kratos and Atreus. There are a few different things you could infer from not only the trailer, but also what he's saying here. And so there you go. There's a little update on what we can expect from Tyr. But we're going to move on to the next topic, which talks about a development team that is currently working on a AAA game that is set to release at the end of this year. And they're talking about leaving behind the PS4 and what the PS5 has allowed them to do. Now, this is a multi-platform title, so what they're saying applies to both, I would assume, the Xbox Series X and the PS5. So let's read what is said here. It says here, speaking in the latest issue of Edge magazine, A Plague Tale Requiem's director, Kevin Chiteau, spoke briefly about the benefits of moving away from last-gen consoles and working with current-gen, that being the PS5 and the Xbox Series consoles. In his interview, he noted that the team started from the basics, rebuilding their gameplay, the AI, and of course the visuals due to the new advancements, explaining that it all served to push the narrative further. In innocence, some parts could look a bit like a theater set due to technical limitations, he says. For Requiem, we've been able to push the horizon much farther, and all these advancements are made to serve the narrative, he continues. When we write, the increased quality allows us to consider sequences that were previously impossible, such as chases with hundreds of thousands of rats, or locations that evolve dynamically according to the story and events. And while some may point out that A Plague Tale Requiem is coming to the Nintendo Switch, it will be a cloud version as previously confirmed, that meaning that the studio isn't bound to the hardware of the Switch, since the title is being streamed to the device. And so yeah, in my opinion, it's always interesting to hear what developers have to say when it comes to foregoing cross-gen development and leaving behind the PS4 in favor of the PS5 as well as the Xbox Series consoles. I mean, we are still very early in the generation, so it's not like we're anywhere close to seeing the absolute limits of the PS5 pushed yet, but I personally always get very excited when I hear of a new game coming out, especially AAA games, and knowing that they're not being worked on for the PS4 and the Xbox One, because what that means is that the chances of these developers being able to do more with their games is much higher. And as we are hearing from the developer of A Plague Tale Requiem, they're saying they're being able to achieve things that were previously impossible. And I think that's always a great thing. Moving on to the next topic, though, we're talking about a new PlayStation game that launched today. I believe it's also launched on PC, that being Stray. The first review scores are in, and if we take a look over on Metacritic, there are 66 critic reviews as of the time of this recording, and it's sitting at a solid 84, which is very good. And I'm hearing really, really good things about Stray. In fact, most of the reviews that I've seen are very positive. This game has been scoring well, and people who have played it are saying that it's really good. And I don't know if it's necessarily being called a must-play, but considering, you know, this is one of the major indie titles that PlayStation has kind of chosen to shine a light on and prop up, I think it is going to end up being a must-play alongside the likes of Sifu as well as Kena Bridge of Spirits. And this is really why I wanted to highlight this, because Sony is continuing to prove that they just know what to look for even in the indie space. And there's been criticism thrown at Sony before that they don't care about indies or whatever, and I just think that's a load of nonsense when you see them kind of really giving these indie titles such as Stray and the others that I mentioned the chance to really shine and go above and beyond here. But most importantly, I think that we are continuing to see a pattern, and that pattern is that Sony, specifically Shuhei Yoshida, who is the head of PlayStation Indies, has a very keen eye on what to look for and, you know, how to kind of pick and choose these indie games that are doing something interesting, unique, or just something that is very high quality. And the reason why I'm giving a lot of praise to that is because when you look at the indie space, I mean, there are more games than ever before. It's like flooded, right? So I imagine it's not easy to be able to kind of wade through all that and kind kind of find those diamonds in the rough. And that's what I really appreciate about the way that Sony does this, is they are looking for these diamonds in the rough, and I think that they've been doing a very good job. So let me know what you think about the review scores of Stray, and let me know whether or not you are planning on playing it. Again, it's coming out tomorrow, and it's launching into PlayStation Plus Extra and Premium. And if you want the physical copy, it's going to be launching on September 20th. But we're closing out this video with a follow-up to the recent Skate news. As you know, the game was announced to be free to play, and it's going to be a live service that will feature microtransactions. This is reading from PlayStation Lifestyle, where it says Electronic Arts recently announced that there will be no paid Skate loot boxes, but stopped short of confirming if there will be cosmetic loot boxes that can be earned by gameplay or in-game currency. The latter is a given, considering Skate will be a free-to-play game, and it simply can't exist without monetization, and data miners certainly have found references to loot boxes called swag bags that can be purchased via in-game currency called taps. Taps can be earned by exploring Fun City and by completing in-game challenges. Although taps is an in-game currency that players can earn by playing, fans are weary of EA locking loot boxes behind taps because there have been a number of cases in recent years of developers adding real money into the equation. Players worry that EA will eventually make taps purchasable by real currency, making the in-game grind harder and worse, and locking some of the best loot behind taps that'll end up encouraging people to fork out real money if they don't want to grind. It's a reasonable fear and one that isn't without merit, but it's worth noting that the data mined information was pulled out of a very early build of Skate that isn't representative of the final product. That said, players should expect that monetization strategies will be baked into Skate's development, considering it's a free-to-play game that relies on such a business model. In other words, it might be too early to write off Skate unless free-to-play simply isn't your thing. And so I wanted to cover this because it's only fair that we follow this up. I feel like this is, again, just kind of one of those situations where it's really easy. And again, this is the EA effect. EA has earned a reputation that makes it very easy to just assume the worst. And I do not blame anybody for doing so. But it is going to be interesting to see how this unfolds, because if there's one thing that has become clear at this point, is that for Skate in particular, and I think this same logic is going to apply to a lot of the live service PlayStation games, and that's pretty much why I'm covering this and talking about it so in depth. I think we're going to see a very similar situation. It's going to be really important how they talk about monetization and how they implement it, and they're going to have to walk a very fine line. And I do think it is definitely possible for them to do it the right way, but it's also very easy for them to kind of slip and fall and make some mistakes here. And so, you know, we'll have to see how they handle it, but I wanted to keep you guys updated on this. I don't think anybody is surprised to hear that there's going to be microtransactions. They literally confirm this, but, you know, when you hear things like loot boxes and swag bags and, you know, how you're going to have to earn currency, you know, obviously they're going to have to make money since it's free to play, but it's going to have to be a good balance. And so, yeah, there you go. There's your update on Skate. But that's going to do it for this video, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. I hope you did find it informative. Again, leave it a like if you did. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Hit the bell notification icon, and feel free to share this video out on top of all that. But until next time, guys, take care.